In this video, I'll be taking a slightly different course, and you're welcome to follow me without remorse. After all, the different always comes at a price, but everything else is expensive anyway. I'll begin not with theory, but with the challenge. One that resembles a paradox, but isn't. It appears paradoxical only if you already assume, without noticing, the very premise it intends to unsettle. Only later will I introduce truth-conditional semantics, lay out its promise, and put its nature to the test. But first, a note of provenance. This reflection grows out of a paper I published in 2022 titled False Triviality of Truth. If anything in this video leaves you unsettled or intrigued, I recommend the text for a deeper excavation. Where, then, is the pressure point? I invite you to consider a mind puzzle, a variant of one originally proposed by Donald Davidson. Imagine that you say the sentence, "Brazil is a sovereign country." Don't worry, this won't suddenly turn into a political video. Now imagine that a perfect clone of you, identical neural structure, same memories, same linguistic capacities, utters the same sentence. Brazil is a sovereign country. According to truth-conditional semantics, the meaning of this sentence, let's just call it P, is entirely captured by the conditions under which it would be true. So, if it's true when you say it, it must be true when your clone says it, provided the world and the sentence align in the same way. Seems airtight. But the question is that all? Because this isn't just about truth, it's about semantic commitment. What the clone example reveals, quietly, uncomfortably, is that what we call meaning can misalign from truth conditions in more than one direction. What the clone scenario forces us to confront is this, that two utterances of P, two identical outputs with identical formal projections, can emerge from entirely different ontological lineages. You and your clone both say Brazil is a sovereign country. The sentence survives the test. It doesn't crash the truth table. Its projectable footprint is clean. But your clone was trained on twin Earth, where Brazil points to a different referent, where the political and historical conditions of sovereignty are not ours. Now ask, have you both said the same thing? This is where things get complicated. A truth-conditional sympathizer might reply with the question, if someone has been trained to assert this sentence, to activate the same neural pathways, to output P in the same contexts, to respond in ways that keep P aligned with what is taken to be true, then isn't that enough? Isn't that what it means to grasp P? According to truth-conditional semantics, yes. The idea is that if you can consistently say P in all and only those worlds where P is true, you have its meaning. There's nothing more. It is, at its core, a numerical model. Meaning becomes a kind of extensional equilibrium, a mapping from sentence to set of truth conditions, from utterance to world compatibility. And if that compatibility holds, if saying P doesn't collapse the system, doesn't generate a Russell-class inconsistency or a Gödel-style recursion error, then P has passed its semantic audit. It behaves. It's countable. It belongs. So, extensionalism says yes, because the numeric equivalence of your outputs holds. Same conditions, same truth value, same performance. But now I'll make the argument, the one I first laid out in 2022, and which I ask you, as indiscreetly as one can in public, to go and read for yourself. If meaning is calculable only when P is already stable, already sanitized, already formatted for the model, then truth-conditional semantics isn't giving us meaning. It's giving us post-semantic hygiene. But in the next chapter, I'll do something far more reckless. I'll take seriously the idea that this can't be all that meaning is. Chapter title: Sanitize Meaning, a brief history of truth-conditional semantics and its triumph over complexity. Ever since Frege first suspected that truth might function like reference, a limit condition, the place where meaning is forced into compliance, exceptions began to haunt the system. Even in Sinn und Bedeutung, the very text that launched this distinction, cracks already appear. Proper names that fail to refer, sentences that seem meaningful yet lack truth. So why, decades later, did David Lewis still treat truth-conditional semantics as the moment semantic blindness ends? Because Lewis wasn't chasing meaning as depth, he was chasing meaning as calibration. In Tarskian terms, to give the meaning of P is to specify the circumstances under which P would be true. But in practical terms, and this is where Davidson's genius lies, it's also a way of tracking how speakers navigate the world using P, what they infer from it, what they expect from it, what they would retract if it failed. Meaning becomes horizon-shaped. Its depth is what a speaker is prepared to bet on when saying P. But like every theory grounded in success conditions, this model has its sleight of hand. The optimism of projection, that we can model meaning by mapping its truth conditions across possible contexts, eventually meets its own limits. It imagines a clean space where P can be asserted without paradox, a world where commitment is never reversed, where the inferential future of P unfolds smoothly and unambiguously. And yes, that condition can be reached. Peace has been forged between enemies who fought for 4 centuries. A common grammar has emerged between antagonistic scientific paradigms. Even neural architectures, separated by epochs of isolated evolution, have suddenly synchronized in speed, structure, and symbolic reach. But when such convergence occurs, it is not truth-conditional semantics that achieved it. It is not the semantic table that built the bridge. It merely records the alignment once the work is done. Truth-conditional semantics does not tell us how understanding is forged. It tells us when projection becomes safe, when the chaos has settled into a surface smooth enough to be mapped. It does not reveal the genesis of agreement, only its outline, post facto. We can begin the trajectory toward a conclusion here, though not a conclusion in the sense many would like, not as verdict or synthesis or confident closure, but as a record of what could be drawn out, what I was able to invoke and bring to your attention in a little more than 5 minutes. Truth-conditional semantics is like success-conditional economics. Both are formally elegant, superficially rigorous, and ontologically hollow. They tell us that value depends not on substance, but on outcome. A sentence means what would make it true. A product is worth what someone is willing to pay. So, that is the original thesis. Or, if you prefer the original metaphor you'll take from this video, truth-conditional semantics does for meaning what speculative finance did for value. It turns everything into a simulation of success. We've watched how truth-conditional semantics, elegant and operational as it is, risks flattening the very thing it aims to grasp. Not because it's false, but because it arrives after the storm. It models peace, not negotiation. It traces convergence but cannot account for conflict. This, of course, is not a full-blown argument in the spectacular sense. It doesn't demolish. It delineates. It traces the limits of what truth-conditional semantics can achieve. And its best achievement? Well, it tells us when a sentence behaves. It models when meaning holds still. But is that all meaning is? That, I'm afraid, remains the question.